am on January 28th. And wow, I cannot recall being in a meeting where I was speaking and it was being recorded. So thank you very much, everybody, for all the good grace that you'll give us as we begin our first meeting of the 2025-2026 biennium. Before we begin our work of the meeting, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the land that we love and that we inhabit. Josh, can I ask you to please share the beautiful video from the Seattle International Film Festival?
Yes.
Hash Chesh Eskol. It is good we are together. We acknowledge that we are on the indigenous land of the Coast Salish peoples, who have reserved treaty rights to this land, including the Duwamish, Duh Duabj, Suquamish tribe, Duh Akwabj, Muckleshoot Indian tribe, Buckleshoot, and Snoqualmie Indian tribe, Stokwabuh. We thank these caretakers of this land who have lived and continue to live here since time immemorial. And we thank you for taking the time to know and understand the true history of this place, and to practice allyship in taking care of these shared lands. In good health. Hoi.
Thank you, Josh. I really appreciate that. And in this moment of solemnity, I'd like to acknowledge that yesterday was Holocaust Remembrance Day. And taking a deep breath, I want to thank us all for coming together and remembering that we carry those survivors with us in our heart, and that we carry forward the work that we need to do to ensure that all of our communities remain safe, that our civilization never devolves down that path again, and that we protect all of our neighbors. Thank you. Now on to the business of the meeting. The first step, as always, is to approve our consent agenda. I'm not sure that we're able to display it. I know it was a link in at least 2 of the 3 emails you received from me. It is a very basic agenda. As I mentioned, as a newbie chair, we're not stepping out very far right now, but we are planning to have a couple of guest speakers. We are planning to share some officer appointments, some legislative district appointments, and talk through the business of this county body. Taking a moment to allow you to check the screen or look in your email, and also noting that we will have endorsement considerations tonight. Do I have any objections to this consent agenda?
Tim has his hand raised.
Oh, thank you. I don't see that on my screen, so I appreciate that so much. Tim, you have your hand raised with a question.
No, I had a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Oh my goodness, Tim, you're warming my heart. I appreciate that so much. In that case, I'd like to ask for a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Alex. I appreciate that. Wow, South County represents tonight. Awesome news. With that, if there are no objections, no other objections, then by acclamation, I'd like to say that we've adopted our agenda for tonight. Thank you. Next, I'd like to approve the minutes. And the minutes of our previous meeting are the minutes of our reorganization. That was a pretty single-use meeting where we just elected new officers and didn't do any other business. The December organization minutes are in the chat. And I think many of you were there, and we have worked through those quite a bit. Josh, thank you so much for putting them on screen as well.
Sure, no problem.
Tim, I'm wondering if your hand might be raised again.
No, it wasn't, Beth, but I moved to adopt the minutes as presented.
Thank you so much. There a second?
I second.
Thank you, Alex. Alex Milston from LD30. I appreciate that. Were there any objections or any changes to the minutes as presented? Any objections? Any objections? Seeing none, with a motion and a second, I'd like to approve these minutes by acclamation. Thank you very, very much. And again, I will apologize. This was actually in my notes to apologize for spamming you with so many reminders and updates. But as we begin this first cycle, I just wanted to make sure that everybody had the chance to be in the room. So now the more fun part of the evening. Congratulations. Congratulations to all of us. We are here and we're here together. And I am so happy to be among this large group of colleagues who are all equally committed to raising up our shared values, to activating ourselves, our neighbors, our friends, to elect Democrats up and down the ballot. Chris, I see your hand is raised and I'll get to you in just a second, okay? Great. As a point of interest, I've done a little bit of learning about these organizations over the last month or so. And after 15 reorgs and 4 appointment meetings that elevated 7 candidates to our state legislature and several King County Council meetings and speaking with many of the new chairs, it is clear to me that we are all peer organizations. King County Democrats exist for the same reason that your LD does, and that is to serve the voters in our area and to serve those candidates and to be a conduit of information as well as creators of information and creators of events and sharers of our communal events. I believe that we are existing to serve and support each other and the candidates, and I'm so glad to join together to do that with you. This year, we have many notable priorities. None is more important tonight than a massive information share, catching you up on the goings-on of this org and your party, and then a pretty significant call to action for voting and organizing. Eventually tonight, we hope to have a couple of guest speakers. One will be Sophia Dannenberg, who is one of our representatives to the DNC, to share what happens next weekend when the DNC has their elections. And the other, hopefully, will be Jorge Barron, King County Council member, who will share with us some information on how to act, react, protect, and assist our neighbors who may be feeling threatened by current actions of the presidential administration. Before I move on to sharing officer appointments, I'm noticing a hand is raised. Hi, Chris Porter.
Hello, Beth, and thank you. Maybe this can wait to good of the order, but it had to do with the reorganization.
That would be up to you to decide if it is good of the order. Because the reorg meeting is complete and all of the LD's reorgs are complete?
Oh, it had more to do with the process. I'm hoping next year, or excuse me, next reorg, the invitation default was that you either chose that you wanted to attend the reorg and or the other meeting. And it just seemed to me that if you're sending me an invitation because I'm a newly elected PCO, the default is I'm probably going to attend the reorg meeting and maybe I want to attend the additional one that was on there. I assumed that that was the case, and it was a bear to get in the meeting because I didn't realize you had to select both. And to me, that's counterintuitive that you have a list of newly elected PCOs that you'd want them to attend the meeting. So the default would be that they would attend and that they would select that they didn't want to attend.
I understand completely, and I truly appreciate the feedback. And I would like to also at this time thank those of you who provided feedback in the form that we sent to you over the last couple of weeks. And Chris, I'm wondering if by way of this good suggestion that I can also volunteer you to participate with us in the record keeping and then the organization of the next reorg, because I think that is a really good point that you brought up. And I appreciate it. Thank you.
And that's the last time I'll bring up something because you volunteered me, but I'm happy to help.
Thank you. Thanks very much. We have some slides around Robert's Rules of Order that we can quickly go through. Josh, I'm wondering if you think we can, should, or if we should roll forward and bring them up if there are questions.
Well, I can nonetheless, so totally up to you.
Let's do just a quick flip, and then
Sure.
people can put their hands up if they'd like to go a little deeper into them. Super, thank you. So in Robert's Rules of Order, there's some fancy phrases. One is, Chair, request for information. For instance, if we're electing somebody, is there a gender requirement? Is this vote a simple majority? Those are great examples of a request for information. Point of order is a little bit different. That would be something like, hello, Chair, this motion has not yet been seconded. And so please do raise your hand and indicate point of order. And the third really interesting point is a question of privilege. For instance, if you can't hear me or you haven't been able to vote yet, these are things where you really need to be able to participate in the meeting. So that's different than a point of order or a request for information. It's my assumption is that I should be able to hear and participate, and those needs have not yet been met. So we would utilize that phrase. I noticed that. Thank you very much, Josh.
Yeah.
Why don't we go ahead and put up the leave those slides down for now. I notice one of our speakers is in the room, Sophia Dannenberg. We can admit her, and perhaps I can read our officer appointments while Sophia gets settled. And if somebody can message to her that she'll be up following the officer appointments, that would be great. Call it good? Okay. At this time, I'd like to share with all of you the names of some lovely volunteers amongst us who have stepped up to lead some important committees and hold some very significant roles in King County Democrats. Your legislative districts or your LPO, if you're in the Young Dems, has these roles also, but these are the people who will be serving these positions on behalf of King County Dems. First, I'd like to thank Kat Pipkin for serving as our endorsements chair. Kat, thank you so much. Next, I'd like to thank Dean Rodenbaugh, who's our endorsements vice chair. Our PCO chair this biennium is none other than Amy Hamrick. Our parliamentarian joins us for his first meeting in this role, Alex Bejeron Estevez. Thank you, Alex. Our elections chair is the inimitable Hannah Floss. Thank you, Hannah, for all of your work for all those years. And finally, last but not least, our ombudsman, somebody who we hope to not have to give very much business to, but we appreciate him waiting in the wings for us, and that's Shep Saluski. Thank you. Now I'm wondering if Sophia is available to speak with us a little bit about what happens next weekend at the DNC meeting, what her role is, and what the big order of business will be for all the DNC members. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. And sorry I joined late. Literally exactly at 6:30, Ben Wickler, who is the state party chair from Wisconsin, who's running for DNC chair, called me. I was like, I was about to jump on a call. But we've been playing phone tag for what seems like 6 weeks, and I'm leaving for a Parks Commission meeting, so I won't be able to talk to him after today. So sorry about that. But yes, as folks may have heard, there is a DNC officer election that is happening this weekend. And this is, one of the most important things that you actually elect DNC members for, as I have at one point had in some very lengthy post on the 36th District Democrats Thundering 36 page when I lived there. And folks don't know, by the way, I'm in the 10th LD on Whidbey Island, so I've long moved out of King County, but I'm in Island County. But yeah, is that I say voters elect PCOs, PCOs elect state committee members, state committee members elect DNC members for the most part. There's a lot of DNC members who are not elected, and then we elect this leadership who really does set the tone for the party. So that is this weekend. We will be electing a new chair because our current chair, Jamie Harrison from South Carolina, has decided not to run for re-election. He announced that last year. Actually, he announced that he announced it in October 2023. I guess it would have been the year before last. And in addition, we'll be electing 7 vice chairs. There will also be a chair of the Association of State Democratic Committees that will be elected, the ASDC chair, but I'm not involved with that. That is only the chairs and vice chairs who are electing them. In the chairs race, I've been told that there is a Wikipedia page that I keep meaning to look up that lists all the candidates. There are currently a lot of candidates. We had several new candidates actually qualify since the last forum, which was the Western Forum. And I'll say I don't think that most of them have, much of a chance of actually winning. Some of them are actually excellent, have great messaging. I say Faz Shakir is one of them who has really great things to say, but he struggled. I signed his nomination petition, but he struggled to get the 40 nominating positions, which means he's probably going to struggle to get the 200 and 40, 50 votes that he needs to win. The 3 leading candidates are the state party chair from Minnesota, Ken Martin, the state party chair from Wisconsin, who just called me, Ben Wickler, and Martin O'Malley from Maryland, the governor of Maryland. And right now, it's looking like it's probably Ken and Ben far into the leads. They each have, 100 some committed, is the view. I could go into thoughts about either of them. I think, our party has got issues right now. And, in my view, there's a lot that has to be done about getting back in touch with the people, getting back in touch with the working class. I am in a union, I'm in SPIA, getting, sort of gaining the trust of union members, not just sort of the union leadership. I think that most of the candidates that are in the lead have very similar, in my view, ideas and thoughts around that. What we do have that is unusual is I think we have a really historic opportunity, at least historic since probably like the 80s, to elect a leadership who is willing to make structural change in the party. So not just saying we're going to change our messaging, but we're actually going to change the party structure in a way that will, in my view, needs to prevent what happened, which is the party slowly but surely getting out of touch with working people. It's not just that, that Republicans were sort of lying and beating us on messaging, but there was, an image problem. There is at some point we became viewed as the elitist party, despite, the billionaires being over on the Republican side. And that is something that isn't just something we need to change. It's something we have to prevent from happening again. So most of the time when we have the presidency, the chair is essentially named by the president. And other than that, we have systems in place that perpetuate establishment, essentially continuing of the same thing. It makes it very hard to change. I would say that these two that are in the lead, Ken and Ben, are both willing to make these structural changes. It's not clear which one is really willing to make the most significant changes and which ones will be most effective. And these go into the wonky. right? Changes in our charter, changes in the structure, changes in the committees, things like this, the things you were just announcing. We have a very antiquated way, I would say, of, for example, naming committees that really takes power away from the grassroots. That way that I just said, that starts from the voters to the PCOs, those people, those DNC members are something like 20 or 30% of the committees. The rest of the committees are people who are appointed by the chair, which means the power sits in the chair. And then those people who are appointed vote for the next chair. And so it really perpetuates that power because they are allowed to vote for the next chair. And so there, again, I think we have an opportunity to break that. Moving on from that, for the vice chair positions, we have 4 named vice chair positions. And those are the secretary. So anyone who watched the state convention roll call vote, there was a DJ who was like sitting on stage and saying, okay, and he was calling out the states. That's Jason Ray. That's our current secretary who is running for re-election. People really like him. I really like him. I mean, he like emailed and called me a lot when I was a new DNC member. You have to think there's almost 500 of us. So like just calling me up, right? And he has, I think, commitments from almost 300 DNC members. So he's, short of some scandal happening in the next 3 days, he is assured a re-election. Next is our treasurer, Virginia McGregor. This is a pretty, technical job. It's the person who decides what our bank account's going to be. Where are we going to bank? Is it going to be FDIC insured? Things like this. She diversified our bank accounts. It's a very wonky position. She is actually a friend of Biden's from way back. That's how she, I think, initially got into the position, but she wants to stay and is running for re-election. She is by far the strongest candidate. She's not assured the way Jason is, but she's, I think, running a rather strong campaign and is likely to be reelected. We have the third incumbent is Chris Kirsch, who is our national finance chair. And I'll just tell quick, the 30-second story with him is that there was someone else running against him named Chris Lowe. Chris Lowe stepped down, agreed to actually be his deputy, to be Chris Kirsch's deputy. Chris Kirsch was running then unopposed. And the first forum where he was running unopposed, it's a virtual forum. It's on YouTube. You could look it up. It's the first virtual forum. It's the Southern Forum. He's the first person, about 25, 26 minutes in. He is asked about whether wealthy donors are expecting anything in return. He essentially answers no, they only want to make the world better. And then he starts on a rant about how Democrats need to stop demonizing billionaires, and he's a rich person, and he takes this to heart. And there's some, we even have members of Congress who wrote something about the rich or tax the rich. I don't even know, but we need to, they pay their taxes. It was a long rant. And it's not something that a lot of progressives took lightly. He actually said, if you don't agree with me, then find someone to run against me. Someone did come in against him. So now he is opposed, and he is likely still going to win. I will say he's very, the sense is that he's very vindictive and could retaliate against people who vote against him. So it's, especially those at-large members that I said, the ones who are named, that he could, because he's got so much control over the money, that he's got a lot of power. And so he might win re-election, I will say, but there is someone running a very strong campaign against him who entered after that forum. So who entered after that. So his name is Tim Lim. And he entered late because he wasn't going to run until that happened. So that is the third incumbent. The fourth named vice chair position is the vice chair for civic engagement and voter protection. There are several strong candidates. This is, I'll say, there's a woman who was the director of civic engagement for the DNC for a while who's running. Her name is Raina Morgan Walter, and she is a rather strong candidate. There's a gentleman named Michael Blake, who is a good friend of mine in Shasty's, who I probably won't be voting for, even though he's my friend, because I can't bypass a very, very qualified Black woman to vote for a friend of mine. Because she is way overqualified. But he is a very strong candidate. He's a great speaker. He's going to be running for mayor of New York as well. And then there's a couple of congresswomen. So those are the four named. And then there are three at large, and that is where Shasti is running. She is running for one of those at large positions. Of course, I strongly support her. Our entire delegation supports her. I think she's got a good chance. Most of the Western region supports her, but we'll have to see what the Eastern region does. And then there's two more positions. I did note at the state party that there was a political article that talked about our chair race and saying it was going to be White Man Winter, and that does look like what it is. And all of the incumbents, all of those chair candidates that I mentioned, those three plus all of the incumbents, none of them are people of color. So chances are we're going to elect four people in a row that will have no people of color. That civic engagement is likely going to be Michael's black man, or it's somebody like Reina is all the congressmen is three black women, black man. Like, it's a lot of people of color in that race, so that will be the first person of color. There's a chair candidate who does not have traction. There's only one vice chair candidate that's Latino. Her name is Artie Blanco. She's also on the Rules Committee, so I love her for that reason, but she was the national coordinator for AFL-CIO. And so my union SPIA is affiliated with AFL-CIO, and she was a national campaign coordinator for them. So again, at least from my side, I'll likely support her. I think with what happened at the last election, not having any Latino leader in the officer roles would be a mistake. Plus, I love her for a million other reasons. And then there's likely going to be one more male, probably one position that could be male or female. And it would likely be male given that I think the other two positions will go to women. And again, a lot of very strong candidates. I think this is where you'll find your youth are in the men. David Hogg, who is well known from the Marjorie Stone Douglas shootings. He's the activist, the young activist that came from Florida. Malcolm Kenyatta, who is a state senator from North Philly, who spoke at the convention, is running. And there's very, very strong candidates there. So that is the state of the race. I don't think that a lot of our delegation has committed, with the exception of David Green and Shasti have committed to Ken Martin as chair. And we've all committed to Shasti. Other than that, I think, and I think all of us have committed to Jason Ray, the secretary. But other than that, most of us are still going to be making our decisions right up to the election on Saturday. Long intro to the elections. Yeah. I don't know if people have questions or.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. I'd like to give us a minute if there are questions in the room, because that's a lot of information. It's unusual for us in our recent voting history to be electing and the DNC chair and these other offices. And so I'm thrilled to learn from you. Thank you very much. And I see 3 questions. I'll take just those 3 questions. Andrew Ashiafu, would you like to come off of mute and ask a question?
Yeah, thank you so much, Sophia, for all the work you're doing. I don't know how much questions have been asked to the candidates. As the chair of the Stonewall Democrats, I have had the opportunity of meeting some of the candidates. One thing I'm really curious about is, after the 2024 elections, the trans community were thrown under the bus. And we had elected Democrat Congress people that, attacked the trans community, considering that in 2020, 64% of LGBTQ plus people voted for Democrats, and that number went up to 86% in 2024. How has that conversation been crafted to the candidates? And how is that impacting the election? We met with a candidate today that said it was okay to throw trans people under the bus, and that's Jason Paul. So that's why I'm asking this question.
I'll be frank. I haven't seen it asked. I mean, if you go all the way back to that political article, right? That White Man Winter political article, it, basically was saying, like, to me, it felt like they were saying, no, we've just got to get back in touch with, like, the white working class man. I mean, that kind of was the feeling to me. And what I have been asking candidates is, yes, I agree. Like we need to get back in touch with, again, union members, working class voters, but we can't do that by throwing other people under the bus. And what I've been saying is, how do we move forward without going back? Because we're not going back. And I have not heard great answers other than slightly like platitudes, except I will tell you that in my like not public conversation with Artie Blanco, just the one where again I was talking to her about her candidacy, she had a rather lengthy rant about this topic, about essentially saying, and remember, she is the campaign, again, she's the campaign coordinator for AFL-CIO, so in her vice chair role, she is really looking at pressing us on how we do this messaging and campaigning. She was a long, I mean, she was very, very upset, for example, that when the anti-trans commercial was, all over the place, by the Republican Party, it was like on every sports team, like we all remember it, right? It featured like one of my favorite like Instagram people, because I'm a climber and he's a climber, rock climber, Patagonia, I don't know, who was like a photo of Patagonia was like used in that ad. And apparently, and the campaign had prepared an ad against it to respond to it, and it didn't pull as if it was going to make a difference, and they didn't run it. And I think a lot of people were really upset about that and wanting to say, like, again, we need to be authentic, like we need to lead with authenticity. We can't lead on consultants and polls, and we have to, like, our authentic message actually appeals to people, is something people agree with. And we've gotten too far into this. And so into this sort of, there's been a lot of talks about consultants. And I think that's a little bit of where people are starting to, it's kind of the indirect way of saying it, of saying like, we've just gotten to this point where we're being ruled by like, polls and consultants, and not kind of what do you really think? And that if we get back to our authentic selves, that we can win elections and move forward, as I said, without going back.
Thank you. Chris, do you have a question?
I do, thank you. Probably one of the and good to see you, Sophia.
Hello.
Probably one of the most disappointing things in this election wasn't around the messaging or anything, but in watching the returns coming in as they drill down to even the PCO level. Democrats failed to show up in the numbers that they did for Joe Biden. And that was really dismaying in terms of thinking about how would that election have gone if Democrats had shown up in the way they did for Joe Biden in the previous election. And this was really noted in the battleground states, which we thought we were going to sweep. It begs the question of the two people who are running for chair that you talked about, wanting to do structural changes. Two things. Where are they at in terms of what does the party look like if we decide to support another female candidate? And what are we going to do for the long term? Democrats, we live from one election to the other, but we never seem to have the one thing that the Republicans have. They had a long-term plan that in 10 to 20 years, they were going to capture the court. They were going to overturn certain things. They had that plan. We don't have that. So I'm not hearing from any of those candidates that they plan on that level of structural change. We keep living from election to election.
Yeah, and again, like as I even when Ben called, I was like, "Hey Ben, I've been really wanting to talk to you. I was about to jump on something like literally right now, so let me just cut the trace." And what I actually told him is, I think you guys all what I said. You guys all agree that we can that what we have to do, we have to start our messaging. We have to get back in touch. I don't and I said, like, what are we going to do to make it so that we're not back here in 4 years and 8 years and 12 years and 16 years and 20 years. Forget 4 years. And a lot of them, I think a lot, they're, it's very indirect, right? There's not really as much of sort of like a, and a lot of this has to do with this idea of how we got here. That right now they're trying to get us out of this top down, because I think like our top down decision making is out of touch. It is actually out of touch. Like that criticism is real, and that we need to give the power back to the grassroots. Both of them are very focused on giving the power back to the states and the state parties, and how, that, Ben was just saying, there's state parties that just exist, just, as social clubs. Like they don't, he's like, they're not, they just exist because that state needs a party, but really saying like, how do you build state parties? How do you get the power back there? How do you get the power back to the grassroots? And then how do you let that inform that upper level strategy and policy, that whatever we're thinking at the top down, that in fact they don't know. Like I don't. It doesn't sound to me like either of them are really claiming to know like where we need to go. But what they do know is that if we sort of allow the grassroots to have this party, if we do this, if we can try to make it more bottom up, that should tell us what we need to do. But yeah, you're right. Like, and I think again, it's probably why you're not hearing a lot of that, is because of this sort of historic issue with our top-down structure, the feeling of a historic issue.
Thank you. Good question, Chris. Thank you. And thank you, Sophia. I see a question from Lisa Rivera.
Hi, thank you. Hi, Sophia.
Hi.
Thanks for being here tonight and for sharing so much good information with us. I wanted to say I have one of our members. I'm King County Dam State Committee person, but I'm also on the 46th and the vice chair of the 46th LD, and we have a member who made a form, a Google form, that I can share with the reps here today. It's to collect DNC chair feedback. That is basically a nice Google form, and then. So I can put it in the chat and people can look at it and reps here use it or not use it, but it'll consolidate information, feedback on all the candidates that we can then share with you, Sophia, and the other DNC members, or other DNC representatives. So I don't know, no one has to use it. It's just an option. If that would help you guys collect feedback, I can probably share it. I don't know if I have share power here. Let me see.
I have a form there. Is it that one? Yeah. I mean, I think again, it's interesting to me. As I said, I don't think other than those couple of commitments, a lot of people have committed. But
yeah,
it's interesting to me because at least early on, I saw Wickler as like the strong favorite, and Ken is like wanted this job forever. He's definitely rubbed some people at the DNC the wrong way, apparently through the years. I haven't been there long enough. And I've seen him on a couple of I watch all the Rules Committee meetings, so I've seen him and I can see what they mean. It was interesting to me that Ben has been losing support as his campaign moves forward. So it's part of why I was like, really, I was like, okay, I have to talk to you, because like our revolution did like a thing with like 10,000 members, and like they came out and they said something like Ken and Martin were seen as avoiding questions, and like no one viewed them positively, and they only, it was really negative on him from very progressive group, which was surprising because he's progressive. So I'd be curious to hear what like people think, because like I said, the feedback I've been getting is initially it wasn't what I was expecting.
I think maybe one of the most helpful parts of this could be then here at the bottom, it does ask for like specific things that you like about candidates, dislike, what are your priorities for the DNC chair. So this, even though like you said, there are kind of the top ones that are not probably going anywhere, this might still offer some good feedback regarding some of these other questions that it has people fill in for. So anyhow, I'm happy to share this in the chat, or if it already has been, I'm not sure.
It's in the chat, and I'd welcome everybody to take a moment to complete that.
Yeah, and when it's all,
I'm happy to watch one or more of the forums.
Yeah.
I'm happy to send the results off to you guys, to you, Sophia, and Javier, David, everybody who Sharon.
Yeah.
Sharon and David.
Yeah. So everybody look at that. Just like I said, one of our members made that, and I felt bad I didn't share it sooner.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I kept telling people that I was going to commit, and then I didn't, because I was like, I'm still getting mixed responses. I talked to Kim Martin on last Friday or Saturday, and I was like, and he was just like, I'd love to be able to list you, Shasty's on there, And I was like, I'm just going to wait till after the state party meeting. And then I went to the state party meeting, it was all mixed again. So I was like, I had to text him and be like, sorry, dude, I'm still waiting. I don't know. Like, as I said, it's been very mixed. So
thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
And our last question for Sophia comes from LD30, Alex Milston.
Yeah. So Has there been any candidates for chair that have fully committed to like getting rid of consultants for the DNC, or at least the way we have them now?
No, I think that the closest that we've seen, and this has been more a little bit on the chair side, a little bit on the treasurer side, is to increase the transparency around the consultants. And so there's a lot of issues around, again, most, by the way, just so you know, like I had someone say, like, as like a DNC member, can you like figure out how to do this? And I was like, as a DNC member, I can do nothing. You have no idea how little power they give us. Like I said, it's crazy. Like most of the executive committee of the DNC have never seen a budget. They have no idea how our money's being spent, nevertheless, the members. And so people know that there's a lot of money going to, consultants. They don't know who. Like most of us have no idea who it is. We don't know what the money's being spent on. So just trying to start with that transparency, I think is right now the really big focus. Again, some transparency around our money. I think that was what was pressing a little bit our national finance chair, right? That's why people were saying, well, we have these billionaires who are giving money and nobody really knows who they are. And they're all sort of they're also behind PACs. Are they expecting anything in return? And what was funny is that he was like, no, they just want to make the world a better place. And I was like, that's just a lie, because I actually know a couple of them. Like I know some bundlers, and we live in a very wealthy state, right? I mean, I'm sure that people have met bundlers in Washington State. And I was like, one was ambassador to Switzerland, one is now ambassador to Bermuda. Right. Like to say like, oh no, like he, like, not that he wasn't doing it out of the goodness of his heart, but like to say like they get nothing, like, I'm like, of all of the people in the world, do I really think they were like the most qualified to be ambassador to Switzerland and Bermuda or whatever? No, absolutely not. If I put out like a blind resume, like ambassador to Switzerland, I might have someone, who speaks 3 languages or 4 languages, which we definitely have in Washington State, right? Stuff like that, that I'm like, no, they expect stuff. They expect positions in the administration. They expect, like, it's minor, but I did feel like it was disingenuous. So that's a lot of like this saying, like, just be honest about it. Right. He was just like, no, they don't expect anything. I think he was just like, he was like, they just want to help like the gay and the poor. Like if you hear him, you're like, it is like the way I really think he was saying like the gays and the poors. Like I was like, like like there was no like LGBTQ. Like that did not come out of his mouth. Like it was so out of touch. And like I said, I was like that, okay, I'm not saying that's not what they want to do, but like let's just be a little authentic and honest. So that goes back to the like honest, transparent, authentic. Like there's nothing wrong with saying like, yeah, like people who give billions of dollars like to have good seats at events. I mean, what can I say? Like no one's gonna, but same thing, like, the consultants are, there's volunteers, but this is people's jobs, right? They have a skill set. They deserve to get paid. I'm in a union. Like I believe if you have a skill, you deserve, to get paid for that. But are they getting paid fairly? Are we getting what we paid for? Are they unfairly, changing our messaging and our direction outside of what we think our values are? Like those are the things that I think need more transparency. Like I don't have I think you can get rid of consultants, but at the same time, I'm like, there's just like you don't want like everyone working in politics to be underpaid. At least, like it's just kind of like a union thing that I'm like, people kind of deserve to, make at least a reasonable, make the engineer salary if they're changing elections. So
Super. Thank you. I notice we have a new hand up, and I'm a little bit nervous about using up so much time. So Josh, I wonder, is it a short question that we can help ask Sophia to answer?
Yes, it is a short question. I was just asking if any of the candidates have agreed to add more transparency to the way that the money is being budgeted.
Thank you.
they have. They have all said that there needs to be more transparency. I will say that Martin O'Malley played a little game, which paid off and was actually very telling, which is that he published all of his donors to his chair campaign, and he challenged all the rest of the candidates to do the same. And Ken said that he would. I haven't looked it up to see if he has. Ben basically said he wouldn't until he was legally required to, till the 31st of January. and just to be clear, like millions of dollars raised for the DNC chair race. Like, so it's like these donors, like Martin O'Malley has like somebody who's donated tens of thousands of dollars. And I was like, I wish I were rich enough to donate $20,000 to like a DNC chair race. Like, so yeah. So yeah, I think they all say it. I think it's a matter of trusting that they're going to do it.
Cool. Sophia, thank you so much. I want to thank everybody who asked questions. It brought a richness and a fullness to the conversation, and your depth of knowledge is impressive. Thank you for representing all of us at the DNC convention. And will that be in Maryland?
It is. It's in Baltimore. Yeah. I'll be taking a red eye. I'm going to Parks Commission. Yes, and then I'm taking a red eye to the meeting. That's my fun life leaving the commission. So
it's
going to
very
be exhausting.
Glamorous. Very glamorous.
Very glamorous. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you, Sophia. Thank you, everybody who asked really amazing questions. Before I move on to share with you a little bit about our legislative appointments, I want to leave you with a promise from me and your officer team, and that is we are building a dynamic annual calendar. And because we would like it to be very far-reaching and quite deep, it's taking a little longer to put together than we thought it would. Seemed like an easy, post-it notes on the wall situation, not so much. So look forward to seeing something from me in email, and certainly by the next meeting that will be available. Then you'll know when we have speakers like this, and you can see that they're not there, and you can write to me and make a request or a recommendation. I look forward to it. So that's coming up. But now let's talk legislative appointments. And all I can say is, wow. Governor Ferguson has been busy, and he has elevated many state legislators to his cabinet, or some of them received elections all on their own, creating some vacancies. There is a very formal process for making appointments to fill those vacancies. It's outlined in our state regulations, and it requires that elected PCOs in the legislative district where the vacancy resides need to meet in a hybrid fashion, and utilizing one of 3 allowed voting styles, they create a stack rank list of 3 recommended nominations. So this is a recommendation from the elected PCOs of that LD. So those 3 recommendations go to the King County Council. The King County Council has their own process. They receive public comment, both verbally in a meeting, in writing, on Zoom, any way you want to get the comment to them, they receive it and share it. They conduct their own interviews, and those interviews are public in the council chambers on a Tuesday afternoon. And then they meet in executive session to select one of the 3 recommended candidates. It should be noted that whoever, as a county council member, has most of that LD in their district, they do tend to have a stronger voice because they know those people a little bit better. But it is a full vote. It's a full vote of the council, and they have each time come back with a unanimous decision. So that's a pretty cool and interesting thing for me to learn. These processes, because 4 of our LDs were affected so far this cycle, the processes were conducted both by State Party Chair Shasti Conrad for LDs 33 and 48, and on December 7th at the Machinist Hall in South Seattle, and then by me on January 19th for LDs 34 and 41 at Bellevue College. Josh, I think we've got a slide for this. Awesome. And I can share with you that LD 33, which was vacated by the retiring Senator Karen Kaiser, the PCOs recommended, and indeed their representative, Tina Orwell, was elevated to state senator. That left her state representative position open. So in that same meeting, the PCOs came up with 3 recommendations for potential state representative. And in this case, King County Council chose Edwin Obras to fill the seat vacated by Tina Orwell. In LD 48, Senator Patty Cooterer was elected insurance commissioner. A lot of applause for Patty, who's doing amazing work for us. In that case, LD 48 recommended 3 candidates, and King County Council selected Vandana Slatter. And because she was vacating a representative position, they had in reserve 3 recommendations for that seat on the off chance they picked her. And in this case, King County Council selected Osman Salahuddin. Then in January, we held the appointment process meetings for LD 41 and 34. In 41, Representative Tana Sen had been elevated to lead the Department of Children, Youth, and Families. The 3 names were recommended to King County Council, and they selected Janice Zahn. In LD 34, Senator Joe Nguyen was elevated to the Department of Commerce. And in his stead came along State Senator Emily Alvarado. So her representative seat was filled by Brianna Thomas. There's all kinds of data behind all this. In almost every case, 70 to 90% of the elected PCOs participated in each of those legislative district appointments. And if anybody wants to talk to me more about them, I was there for all of those meetings, and I'd be very happy to take that offline. So that was pretty exciting. I really congratulate our 4 legislative districts. They did an exemplary job of promoting amazing candidates, at least 6 in most cases. All of them would have done an amazing job. And in every case, it was a very hard choice for the King County Council. Now I'd like to move forward and speak a little bit less myself and ask our state committee representatives, Lisa Rivera and Drew Estep, to please share with us the happenings at our state party.
Thank you, Beth. I'm happy to share along with Drew. We attended this last weekend. It was the first one for, it was a reorganization meeting for the state party as well. So sort of half of the meeting was to elect the new officers or returning officers, and the next second half was to go over some rules and resolutions, amendments and proposals. So I did take some pretty good, I hope pretty decent notes. I'm happy to share that here. Let me pull that up and kind of just run through that with you. And Drew, feel free to unmute and pipe in, or any time you see something you can add to it. So start at the beginning. So it was so these state committee meetings, they actually last the whole weekend, because one day is usually constituency caucus meetings, such as the Latino caucus and Native caucus, the Jewish caucus, etc. That's kind of one full day, and sometimes those meetings overlap, but it was really nice that this year they spread them out. The party got them on all separate hour blocks, so that people could attend as many as they wanted, which was great. Sunday was the day of the actual meeting, so there's notes here from the meeting. As you can see, they're called to order. We had a tribal welcome. Roll call is always kind of a fun all happening. They put her pictures on the screens, and Isabella, I don't know if her last name actually. She stood in for Secretary Rob Dolan, who couldn't be there. He had been for 14 years. He didn't run for re-election, so he's no longer secretary. But I definitely want to give a thank you to Rob for serving so long in that capacity. There was, we always remember notable Democrats who've passed away this past year. Cecil Richardson, the reproductive freedom advocate, reproductive rights, and Jimmy Carter, obviously, and Dave Asher, who is a former state committee member. Again, we had DNC rep reports. Sophia, Javier, Sharon, David McDonald were all there giving this. Basically, they all talked about, the DNC chair elections coming up and how they really want your feedback. Chair Shasti Conrad gave a report, basically welcoming everybody, talking about, the successes of our state compared to the rest of the country in the last election, and how we have a lot to be proud of. There's still a lot of work to do. She's also running for DNC vice chair. I don't know if that's already been shared, but that was something that we were definitely supporting her and a lot of us, and you'll see this later mentioned. We'll get back to that. But either way, she was reelected as chair. The vice chair, John Thompson, was elected as vice chair. Diane Young was elected as secretary, and David Green, who was the former vice chair, is now our treasurer. So that was first half of the day. Drew, you want to take the second half?
Yeah, that's no problem. Hi all, good to see you all virtually. So second half of the day was sort of the meat of the business. You know, these sorts of meetings are either very spicy in the first half with officer elections or sort of mundane, and we have primary business here in the afternoon. So an abnormally high number of charter and bylaw amendments that we worked through here at this meeting. One package that was actually conceived of initially by our own Aaron Schrader and brought forward by Andrew Villeneuve after work between him and David McDonald to do a lot of sort of basic cleanup within the charter and bylaws. Really love to see those sorts of things. Those documents tend to not get a lot of that sort of love over time, so they can start to get a little clunky. So it was really cool to see those come in. So those all made it through pretty easily. In addition to that, Chair Shasti Conrad introduced a amendment to add a tribal representative to the executive committee and the SCC from tribal nations. So this is similar to the SCC's representative from the Young Democrats and the Women's Federation within these legally recognized demographic groups or protected groups. We'll add members there, and that one was missing. So that was added in this meeting, which was great. And then the other big sort of package brought forward was from LD45 member Andrew Villeneuve to clarify the requirements that the State Central Committee provide contact information to one another within the membership. This had an outdated provision that required that the state office provide the mailing address of state committee members to other state committee members so that they could propose things in writing, et cetera, which predated the advent of email and had been interpreted in the prior administration to mean that the SCC was entitled to home addresses of everyone, not emails. So this was to clarify. That has been since shifted, but Andrew Villeneuve forward to codify that so that it was within the charter and bylaws that folks are required to get each other's email addresses to communicate with one another as SCC members. All these charter and bylaw amendments passed with, I believe the vote was 151 votes out of the room, which was most everyone in attendance. So these were all largely non-controversial, but are good sort of rules cleanup pieces. The other big piece of business was resolutions. So we had 4 resolutions that were considered, 2 of which were not actually ended up being considered at this meeting. The State Central Committee has special rules around which resolutions can be considered at the reorg meeting, because it's usually a spicy meeting. They usually have us consider anything that is not immediately timely for the legislative session at the May meeting. So resolutions that are not in regards to legislative bills are automatically tabled until then. So we had 2 resolutions come in, one around providing rights to orcas and a second opposing the CTAC expansion, both of which were not taken up for actual discussion because they are not about bills that were before the legislature. And so those will be taken up in May. So if you're interested in either of those topics and have an opinion on it, let us know. The other 2 resolutions came forward as urgent resolutions, so they were introduced after the 30-day requirement. The first one was supporting this year's bill for whole Washington, which is single-payer healthcare within Washington state. So putting a supporting position for those specific bills that are going through the legislature right now and are poised to have their first hearing in the healthcare committee, which they have not had in prior years, which is great news. And a second one to endorse Chairwoman Shasti Conrad for DNC vice chair, which was both were enthusiastically and unanimously supported within the body. So pretty straightforward there. At that point, that is the sort of extent of the actual business, and we adjourned the meeting and went to CD representative elections for the executive committee. The executive committee has 1 representative from each congressional district, and your very own Lisa Rivera has been elected for CD7 representative to the executive committee. And that rounds out the business of the meeting. Happy to answer any questions, or Lisa, if there's anything that I missed that you want to go through, happy to. But otherwise, I'm also happy to talk a little bit about the future meetings that are coming down the pipe, because they're a little more interesting than unanimous reelection of the chair.
I'll just add that I'm going to get the list of the CD representatives and I will send this report out to so there's a new listserv that will send it directly to our
State
all the
committee members,
sorry.
the state committee members in each LD.
Yes, it will. But if we want to also have it sent out, I can find if there's a way, trying to think if it's worth also sending it to our KCD reps. Just because it's our report to you, I can do that too.
Super.
Sorry, I just got a text before we move to questions of a reminder. One actually very significant piece. It was a piece of business at the last meeting, but at the September meeting of the Central Committee, the Washington State Muslim Caucus was founded, and the first meeting of that caucus was this last meeting, which was great. They had a huge turnout. Looked like it was like 40 or 50 folks at it, maybe more. So just wanted to also throw that in the hopper.
Thank you. I'd like to hold questions until after you finish your speaking period, Drew. Thank you.
Okay, cool. I'll just quickly run through the next meetings. So the cadence of these meetings are, we're going to have 6 total over the course of the term. So the next one is going to be the weekend of May 3rd and 4th. So here in about 3 months. It's a pretty quick turnaround because that's sort of the businessy meeting. There are sort of 2 big topics that are going to be discussed. The first of which is going to be the budget. The state party has an operating cycle budget that needs to get approved so that they can, spend money and are operating in sort of this weird interim period until then. The other big piece that's definitely going to come down the pike is a discussion around the delegate selection and affirmative action plan, i.e. the rules for the 2026 convention process. Those get started here really early so that chairs, local members, et cetera, can all start to implement that plan as early as possible. So we'll start to see those pieces spooling up. I think in addition to that, there is a long-running conversation around constituency caucuses. As Lisa noted in her half, the constituency caucuses had a great setup this time where they didn't have to meet on top of each other, but that was also because half the constituency caucuses met virtually and half met in person. So we're hitting this sort of awkward structure where constituency caucuses overlap a little much. And so this conversation was prompted with the advent of the Muslim caucus, that as we add additional caucuses, that space constraint gets harder and harder. So there's going to be, I think, some significant conversation around revisions of how the constituency caucuses sort of function, what their applicability to one another in the state party looks like, those sorts of things. So those are sort of the 3 big things I think are going to come down the pike at this upcoming May meeting. And again, that's May 3rd and 4th, the weekend of May 3rd. So keep that in the back of your minds as we're going there as well.
Super, Drew. Thanks very much. Right now, I'd like to recognize the question from Jamie Fackler in LD 37.
Yeah, thanks. I saw there on that agenda that there was a resolution about opposing the SeaTac terminal expansion. Was that voted on?
No, that was
no.
No, that was not voted on because it's not applicable to legislative issues, so it was automatically tabled under our rules to the May meeting. So it'll be taken up then.
Okay, and that there will be some conversation about that, and probably voting on it too. Yeah, this just that same or a resolution similar. Well, I imagine it's probably the same resolution. Came to the 37th just this last week to our e-board, and kind of where we were at is that we would like to have some conversations around this or some type of forum around this, because it's clearly an important issue. So I mean, I would say that it would be nice to have some sort of presentations and kind of open discussions about that, at least. I don't know if we can do that here, if we, what that looks like, but with big issues like this, I think it's really important that people actually at least get some information from both sides on it. So.
For sure. Happy to take that up with Beth on the best way to facilitate that conversation, but more than happy to have one because, it'll definitely come up.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate it. Oh, I'm so sorry, Tara. I think I did not notice your hand before, but you have a question also for Drew and Lisa.
Actually, I had just been wondering if they knew the executive board reps from the other LDs in King County. It sounds like maybe you don't have all that information yet and they're sending it out, and that's fine. And I also after what Jamie said, that resolution came from the Environmental Climate Caucus, and I meant I can have somebody from the caucus also get in touch with the 37th if you guys want a presentation. That's kind of offline.
We
If you
welcome
know
that.
the other exec board LD reps, that would be cool to know.
Yeah, I have I wrote them out. I got a question on this as well. Folks will probably not know these folks, and I'll let you know I already had forgotten the 10th CD's name. But CD1 was Andrew Villeneuve, CD2 is Gray Peterson, CD3 is Steve Perkel, CD4 I think is Elmer Ward, CD5 is Jeff Strickler, CD6 is Joe McGimsey, CD7 is Lisa Rivera, CD8 is Rahana Joshi, CD9 is Carmen Rivera, and CD10 is the seatmate for LD25 who held the position prior, and I just didn't grab her name.
Amazing, Drew. Amazing. Wonderful. Thank you. And thank you both for representing us so well at the state committee meeting. I really appreciate it very much. Thanks. Before we move on to our next committee report, which will be our PCO chair, Amy Hamrick, followed by our treasurer, Dinah Phillips, and then finally the piece de resistance, our endorsement considerations, I'd like to share the spotlight with King County Council member Jorge Barron, who is joining us tonight in rapid fire meetings to speak a little bit about how we can address the turmoil happening in our immigrant community. Thank you so much for joining us, Council Member.
Thank you so much, Beth. I appreciate inviting me to be part of this, and hello to everybody at King County Democrats. More than a council member, I think my real claim to fame is that I happen to be married to the chair of the 36th, my wonderful wife, Tyler. So I'll take credit for that. But I just wanted to give a quick overview of what we're seeing and what's happening. I think, first of all, I want to recognize that immigrant refugee communities are only one of the communities that is being targeted by this new administration. And so there's so much going on for so many communities, and I want to acknowledge that. I was also reflecting as I was preparing for this that actually today is the 8th anniversary of the chaos that the Muslim ban was, and literally January 28th. 2017 was when many of us were at SeaTac Airport dealing with the chaos that was happening then, affecting people from Muslim communities, and here we are again reacting to chaos and things that are being put out without thought, and obviously with a lot of illegality, and that's kind of been the journey the last week or so. I think in terms of immigration policy, I think one of the things that I wanted to highlight for everybody, because in some ways this is the stuff that's not getting maybe as much attention, is that some of the worst things that have happened so far have actually been for people who are outside the United States. And so they have frozen, the administration has frozen the refugee program for people who are, about to come, who had been, gone through this like multi-year process to be able to come to the United States. There's also people who have been waiting for asylum appointments outside the United States who had gone through a process that the Biden administration had set up to kind of orderly consider asylum claims. And that was frozen literally on January 20th. And so I want to acknowledge that there's been a lot of impacts for people outside of the United States that maybe we can't quite feel as much, but obviously many of those people actually have connections to our region as well, including some of the refugees who are supposed to be coming to our state. But in terms of the, and of course, we've also seen this blast of executive orders, including, perhaps most notably, the executive order that is attempting to redefine birthright citizenship, clearly in violation of the clear language of the Constitution. And of course, we're super glad that here Washington State yet again was the leader in pushing back on that and obtaining a judicial order to block that, at least temporarily. But of course, it's important to know that that's only a temporary order, and that process still needs to play out. On that one, I'm feeling fairly confident just because I think the language of the Constitution is pretty clear. But there are other things that are happening. And I think what I wanted to talk about, I think what's probably most getting attention too is just the increased immigration enforcement in the communities and this, attempt to follow what President Trump outlined as mass deportations. And I guess there I want to sort of emphasize a little bit of that I think we have to be balanced in how we think about this, because I think the administration in some ways is trying to create this sense that there is like a lot happening and they're doing all these things. In some ways, precisely to create this aura of fear and get people scared. And so I think part of it is our response needs to recognize both that there are things that are changing, but also not sort of assist them in creating this fear and making the situation worse for immigrant communities, particularly here in places like Washington State. Um, I think what's happening now is that, they've removed a lot of the restrictions that have been placed by the Biden administration in terms of like where they could go. So they've removed the sensitive locations policy that restricted them from doing immigration enforcement in healthcare facilities, in churches, courthouses, and schools. I want to emphasize that there's not a lot of enforcement actually happening in those places. There's been some reports, but some of the reports are actually like confusion. One incident in Chicago that got a lot of attention was actually a Secret Service agent, nothing to do with ICE. And so I think, again, we want to kind of balance that because I don't want community members to feel like they can't go to school. I understand the fear, but I think sometimes like those reports actually make the situation worse. But they have definitely taken out those kind of policies. And the latest that we've seen is that they're actually now placing quotas on ICE agents on the number of people that they want to arrest. And Stephen Miller was on today talking about how those are like floors, not ceilings. And so what that's creating is both the incentive for ICE agents to actually go out and not just focus on people who might actually be a security threat to the community, but just as many people as they can get. And so, while they might be looking for one individual in the community, they will go ahead and try to ramp up and arrest a bunch of people who just happen to be kind of in the wrong place at the wrong time. And so that is what we're starting to see play out in the community. I know I have a limited time, so I could talk a lot more about this issue, but I wanted to focus a little bit on also what people can do in the community, because that's the question that we're getting. I think one thing is important just to help make sure that we're not, again, spreading kind of rumors or information. So I think what people are asking in the community is that if you do see something, and we are getting reports of people seeing, ICE engaged in enforcement actions, we have a good mechanism here in Washington State that we developed during the first Trump administration, which is run by the Washington Immigrant Solidarity Network, WAISN. They have a hotline to report ICE activity, and that number is 1-844-724-3737, and I can share that with Beth so that it can be shared with everybody else. And they have volunteers who run that hotline and take information to be able to assess if there is something, and if it's a large enough action, they actually have volunteers that will go and document what's happening and see if we can provide information or they can provide information to the community members about know your rights. Also sharing kind of know your rights information from trusted sources, including my former organization, Northwest Immigrant Rights Project. That's going to be important. On the political side, I will say I think we're going to see a lot of things moving forward, trying to increase the resources for immigration enforcement. And so I think that's where I think it's going to be important for all of us to be engaged in advocating, particularly with our delegation at the federal level, to try to block some of these worst things. And I will say that even just recently, we saw a really bad bill get through the Congress, and unfortunately, it had some local support. Representative Schreier supported the Lake and Riley Act. Our two senators opposed that legislation, but I think we need to do some work in making sure I'm sure there's going to be more bills coming through Congress that are going to kind of fuel up this deportation machine and create more chaos in our communities. So I just encourage people to be engaged in that. And then there's also work at the state and local level, and I'd say particularly the state level, where obviously the situation with the budget is very intense, but there's discussions about funding for programs like the Immigrant Legal Defense Fund that actually provides legal representation around the state. That's one of the flagship and most important things, so that people actually have access to lawyers if they do get caught up in the deportation machine. So those are some of the things that I think we're working on. Obviously, we're working at the local level to try to assess what we can do here locally. We know that there's going to be attempts to attack our funding because of our policies, and so that's another area where I think we're going to need people's support to make sure that we're standing up for our values and not being, not taking on or just not supporting our policies because of those threats that come from the federal administration. So I just really appreciate all of you being engaged in this topic and figuring out how we can continue to support and stand for our values here in Washington State and here in King County. So thank you all for having me.
Wow, that's wonderful. That's so much good information for us to carry forward. Thank you, Councilmember Barone. Thank you, husband of Tyler Crone. Both equally valuable positions you hold in this community of Democrats. And we really appreciate this great info. I noticed that Melissa Taylor put some in the chat, and we will have more forthcoming. Appreciate it. I hope you have a great evening. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Excuse me, did he have to leave? I was going to say, could he take questions?
He is still in the meeting, and Judy, it sounds like Judy Gibbs, if you'd like to raise your hand, we can give you the floor and ask a question.
Okay.
Or just
raising my hand. I blurted it out because I can't find that. It's a hand signal. Hargay, a question I have for you. At the beginning of the original Trump presidency, I think it was early 1917. I'm sorry, 2017. Sorry, I've been indexing historical materials. At the beginning of 2017, one of the local groups held a day-long workshop on resistance to Trump. And I sat in on it. It was a full day. And a lot of them were things I don't think we want to engage in. I mean, they're not bad, but one of the things they said that I think is really important for people to realize is if somebody comes to the door and you don't know who they are, or if it looks like they're ICE, don't let them in. Step out. They said, step outside and close the door. The comment was, once they're in, they're in. But if you step outside and close the door, I believe they cannot come in without a search warrant. They have to go get a search warrant, right?
That's right, Judy. That's absolutely right. And yes, I remember that day. Actually, I was part of that with the city of Seattle and a number of other partners that set up that day of action. I will say that there was a smaller event this past week, but I think some of the groups have actually held back on doing large scale kind of know your rights events because there have been some concerns from immigrant communities that they could become targeted. So I'll just note that. But you're absolutely right that I think that is one of the key messages for immigrant communities. Is that, in most of the circumstances, ICE doesn't have judicial warrants. And so if folks are simply not answering the door, not disclosing information, those can be very protective. And I will say one of the most satisfying things that I've seen this past week was Tom Homan, the new quote unquote border czar, was actually complaining about this on Fox News, talking about the fact how the folks in Chicago were actually very effective in their know your rights. And so ICE wasn't actually be able to detain as many people precisely because people were actually exercising the constitutional rights. So absolutely, that is the case. Sometimes ICE does have warrants in certain cases. So I don't want to say in every situation that's not the case. But I think it's an effective protective tool for a number of community members. Yes.
And can I ask a second question really fast? My Chinese eye doctor, who's excellent, said that during the first term, Trump was talking about deporting Asians, and I said to her, including naturalized ones. And I'm wondering if that is still a problem. I mean, I've got two Asian women friends that I'm concerned about. They're both immigrants, but they're both naturalized. And could he really deport naturalized citizens? Could he undo what he was apparently talking about was undoing their naturalization and then deporting them? Is that possible?
Judy, the technical answer, I'm a lawyer, and so I always have to be technical in these answers. And the technical answer to your question is yes, it is possible, but is it likely? No. And the reason for that is that there is a procedure by which people can be denaturalized. It's the process if the government can actually prove and go through the judicial process that they lied through their immigration applications in a way that was material, right? And so yes, and sometimes, and usually that only happens if the person was sort of like engaged in like war crimes in their home country, and they found that out later, and then they go through that process because it's a very complicated process through federal court. So yes, it's possible, but I don't think that that's something that I would be, if I'm a naturalized citizen, right? It's not something that I worry day to day. Most of the impact for these policies are going to be for folks who are undocumented or folks who have temporary protection right now, like folks who came in humanitarian parole. I think the risk for naturalized citizen, while not zero, is very, very small, and really only if somebody did something wrong during their immigration application process. And Ben,
Okay,
I can keep answering questions, but I know you have a meeting to run, so I'll let you.
I just want to say thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Alex, I see you have your hand up. I'm wondering if it's kind of a speedy question.
Yeah, it's kind of related to that. The 30th LD, specifically Federal Way, is like over a third like Asian American. So please, if you have any information or any updates on that, please let us know, because that kind of thing would be devastating here. So thank you.
I'll make sure that we highlight that in our research. Thank you very much. Thanks, Alex. And again, thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate all your work.
Thank you. Take care. Okay, next up for a brief committee report is our new PCO chair, Amy Hamrick. Hi, Amy, you're on mute.
Hey, sure was. Thank you. I'm going to make this quick since I know we are have a lot left to get to. I want to thank everybody who became elected as a PCO, everybody here that was elected to their LD board. It's so important to have this grassroots work. So thank you to all of our volunteers. I know that a lot of you have had questions about getting new PCOs appointed to vacant precincts. There is some technical issues on the back end of the automated process. So our tech guy, Aaron, is working on that. We cannot finish anybody's application process until that is complete. So we're hoping to have it up within the next 2 weeks. The online application is active, so you can have people fill out an application if they want to be appointed, but it's going to stay in that first step until we can get everything back up and running. And I will keep you all updated on that. I am going to be having office hours every Tuesday from 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. I'm going to be available on Zoom. And so you can tell your LD PCO chairs or anybody that has questions about being a PCO, they're welcome to jump on that any week. And we can talk one-on-one. They can also email or text me. We do have a pretty ambitious goal of getting from the 1,150 PCOs we have now to hopefully in the 1,500 to 1,800 range. So we do want to encourage people to be asking to be appointed as PCOs. So I think that's everything. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Amy. And thank you for holding some office hours so that we know when we can reach you either on the phone or at the Zoom meeting, and that anything that's lingering or really hard will probably be worked through doing some of those hours also. Hi, Jamie. I see you have a question, probably about PCO stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So former PCO chair. So I'm passing the torch over at the 37th. And so curious, as far as your open office hours, what can I tell the new, as far as how can the new PCO chair get a hold of you? Do you have contact info? Will that be shared?
Yeah. So sorry, Beth.
I'm just going to say we're going to pop that into the chat, and then you can copy it down. It will definitely come out in the minutes, and it'll be every week on Tuesday mornings. But of course, email and text messaging is a brilliant way to go, especially if you're otherwise engaged during the business day.
Thank you.
Yeah, super duper. Thank you. Now it's our new treasurer's turn, Diana Phillips. I wonder if you're available to come forward, share your slide about our budget. And I believe we do have a vote that will be occurring during Diana's section.
That is Correct. All right. So the quick version of this is that we are in our budget. So from an overall dollars perspective, we're doing fine. We're inside our budget. We're mostly spending on core items, infrastructure, stuff that keeps us going every day, websites, etc. The only area where we had a little bit of an overage was an expenditure back in April. It turns out that when you try to text 150,000 people and get your PCOs to file to become PCOs, it costs a little bit of money. So the finance committee did approve this expenditure. Everything went through the normal process. It's just that we happen to be over budget on the outreach line item specifically. So what we have included in the agenda for today is a vote that we are going to ask you to make to move 3,000 of those dollars from the fundraising line, which is up there at the top, which you can see is well under budget at this time, and then move those $3,000 down to the outreach line item so that we do have some additional dollars in case we need to do additional outreach because we're coming up on another cycle. So Beth, I'm going to pass it back to you. If folks have questions, please reach out. I'm happy to talk about any of this stuff, but so far we've just been lights on, doors open.
Great. I think what we need to do is actually ask for a vote of the body to transfer money from one line item to the other. I'm delighted that it's for the use of outreach because reaching those PCOs and increasing our broad reach in the community is super duper important. So what I'd like to ask everybody to do is to locate their React tab at the bottom of the screen. When I ask for a vote, all those in favor, I'd like you to use the green ball with the white check mark in the middle. And we use that because it stays up on the screen longer than the thumbs up, and we can actually count those. Then when I ask for those opposed, we'll use the red ball with the white X. To know if you are a voting member, you'll want to look at how you are named in your Zoom box. You can look at mine and Diana's and see that we have a star and then a designation next to it. The star means you are a voting member. The KC in my case means I'm a voting member by virtue of my being an officer of King County Dems. I suspect that Diana might also have a star 12 because I think you have voting credentials as being the representative from the 12th legislative district also. But never fear, she can only vote once. So no ballot box stuffing happening here.
Beth, there are some problems. We have two people from the 34th with asterisks who are not voting members.
Oh, thank you so much for bringing that up, Bunny. I really appreciate it. I am going to ask our credential team to.
Okay, it's now just down to just Jordan.
And is Jordan a voting member?
No, he's our chair though, and we love him, but.
Who are your
Chairs are voting members.
Chair, so a chair is a voting member.
Oh, is he? Okay, I did not know that. So
and then
Chris is a voting member.
Great. So every LD has their chair and two elected members. They've also elected two alternates. So in the case that one of your elected primary members cannot attend, then one of the alternates may vote in their stead. So a question from Nancy. She has a star 33. And I'd love our credential team to confirm that she indeed is, although she's an alternate, she is voting in this meeting.
Beth, we have several hands raised. Do you want me to go through them?
I'd love that because they're really hard for me to see.
Sure. Mary Scanlon.
Ooh, thank you. Yes, we have a main representative here in Jamie Fackler, and we also have our two alternates here in Eloise Ernest and Tahiyat Rahman. And so I'm wondering if I can defer my voting privilege to our other alternate, Eloise Ernest, who otherwise it looks like she would not be able to vote. Is that okay? Do we have three?
Mary, as the chair, you and being present, you are a voting member, so we need to ask you to cast your ballot. And perhaps the two alternates can confer and agree on how they would choose to vote for this. So it would be you as the chair, your one primary delegate, and then one of the two alternates.
Okay. If I were to excuse myself from the meeting, would Eloise be able to take over for me?
Actually not, because
Okay.
there is no substitute for a chair.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Thanks.
Good effort, though. You ran at it 3 times. I appreciate that.
Sure. Thanks.
Thank you. And I imagine that's also the hand from Tahiyat Rahman. In that case,
Yeah,
yes.
sorry, I have a different question.
Oh, good. Go for it.
Yeah, but my name's Tayat.
Thank you.
I just had a question about the budget, actually, a couple of questions. So one thing is there's a bunch of things that are blank, which are a little bit surprising. Like especially leadership development, that should be substantial. And the biggest thing, staff, is blank. So I'm wondering, what the actual numbers
So I can
The actual numbers, this is a very easy one. The actual number is 0.
Okay, so
We did
this
not, in
is
fact, spend money on that. There was some complexity around hiring staff where we didn't make the prerequisites in order to bring people on. So if you want details, there's this was through the end of December. It was not through January. So the numbers for January will be coming out next month.
Excellent
Okay.
question. Melissa, it looks like your hand is down now.
Diana did a great job.
Okay, awesome blossom. Jackie Boschak.
Thank you, Chair. I earlier heard you ask a question about the voting delegation from the 33rd LD, and I know that perhaps the information that I provided for our reorganization may not have hit the credentials team yet, but one of our representatives is here, Josh, and the second one is not, and therefore Nancy Kick as our alternate should be eligible as a voter.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Great. Seeing no other hands, and I believe I will ask our very seasoned KCDCC officers to tell me if I'm incorrect, but I do believe I need a motion and a second that the treasurer's votes are not like the endorsement committee.
We did, the officers are able to move in second. So Diana can move and I can second. It's essentially how this came to be.
Beautiful. And I think that's what Alex, our parliamentarian, was raising his hand to share. So thank you. And Jinx, nice job. There's a question on the floor from Carolyn Collins.
I was wondering if you could go back over how to vote yes or no, or like put it in the chat for reference, please.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So acknowledging that the officer team has moved and seconded the suggestion to move money from one line item to outreach so that we can, from the fundraising line item to the outreach line item, so that we can adequately fund the wonderful PCO outreach that we have done. What I'd like us to do is to vote next by going to the React tab. And if you click on React, there are a lot more features than there once upon a time were, where it was only a thumbs up and a thumbs down. In this instance, you go to your React tab and you look for a green ball with a white check. And Diana's displaying that right now in her box. and if you vote to approve. If you do not, you would utilize the red ball with the white X, which you see an example of in my box. I'm going to take mine down, and I'm going to ask Diana to take hers down. And I'd like for everybody in favor of this budgetary detail of moving $3,000 from the fundraising line item to the outreach line item to please indicate approval at this time. In a moment, I'll ask for those not in favor, but right now we're asking for approval of making that budgetary change. We'll take a moment. I'm going to ask the tally team to let me know when they think that everybody with a star next to their name has had a chance to vote.
So we have 40 people. I have checked it for, there are not any non-voting members voting. We have 41 now people, 42 who have voted in favor, and that is sufficient to that it is a winning amount of the people present and voting.
Super. Thank you very much. I suppose I probably should have voted too. So please add my green check. Thank you. In that case, with that quorum report and that voting result, I'd like to ask you to lower your marks. And Diana, thank you for your report, and thank you for this thoughtful way of supporting our outreach efforts. It does a bit beg the question of, if you would like to see us do more of these things, please donate to King County Democrats. Thank you, thank you. Next up is the piece de resistance, so you might say, for this meeting. And I welcome our endorsement chair, Kat Pipkin, to take the spotlight and move forward with our endorsements.
Okay, we're going to drop into chat. Chris, would you also give that title in there so people know what link they're clicking on there? Endorsement Committee Report. So we have two links for you. First is the Endorsement Committee Report. There was a little discussion about that first thing in the meeting. That is a complete report. There you go. We have a conversation about races that are eligible for endorsement. We'd love to, I believe, was pre-moved on the floor. If you go down one page, other activity, we have developed a number of questionnaires. We have 4 questionnaires to approve tonight. That would be the second vote. And that would be also the second link. If you would drop that in for us, Chris, that would be questionnaire packet number 2. Now, questionnaire packet 1 was for King Conservation District, and we all voted on that last fall. I'm thinking people are tired. So, Beth, do you want me to go through the races that we're hoping to, or do you want to?
I think that we're going to do another little voting practice, and I think we're all going to vote on approving the questionnaires, because we're loving that green ball with the white check. And these questionnaires are amazing. The questionnaires have been written by representatives from LDs across the county. They are amazing and fabulously inclusive, and leave us a lot of room to catch our candidates on the spot when they sit with us for interviews. And as you know, they're available to all of the LDs to use. And it's a bit of an agreement that we have with the candidates that they'll get to use just this one questionnaire rather than an additional 17, one from each LD. So knowing that anything coming from the endorsement committee constitutes a motion and a second, I direct everybody to their react button, and everybody in favor of accepting the wonderful work created by the endorsement committee to utilize these questionnaires, please go ahead and provide a green ball with a white check in it. Green balls bouncing all up and down that participant page. It's great to see. Kat, I'm delighted you're voting for your work. That's very encouraging. If the tally and credential team can tell me when we look like we're nearing approval.
Yep, we are once again at 41 check boxes. We do have 2 hands up. So I think we should complete the voting and then maybe you can take those hands. Oh, and we are now at 42 check. So 42 constitutes a sufficient majority to approve the questionnaires.
Beautiful. Thank you. We can lower our marks, and I would really love to take question from, it looks like, Aloise Ernest.
Hi, yes, this is Aloise.
Oh, thank you. I apologize. I tried. I didn't
understand. Thanks. I just had a question about the second common question there that says, have you ever been a member of another political party? Just out of curiosity, is that something that disqualifies someone from endorsement? Okay.
No, it does not. Beth, do you want to take it?
No, go for it. Look at me.
So Beth has a vested, for those of you who are new, Beth has a vested interest in all of this work because all of this work product was really, I mean, I'm taking credit, but it was actually Beth who developed it last year. So, yes, we always ask these 3 questions. The first is required by our bylaws. The second is just traditional. Just, hey, have you ever been a member of another party? Just so if we come across something in our research, we're not surprised by it. It is in no way a disqualifying response, however.
Good to know. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Thank you. Thank you. And with that, Kat, I welcome you and your committee to move forward and publish these questionnaires on our website for anybody interested in running for all of these offices. We will get a 3rd packet in our next meeting for some of the smaller offices that often filing week requires a deadline to get people to become interested in maybe being a hospital commissioner or on the Parks Board, stuff like that. So next.
May I offer one last comment, Beth?
Yes.
Is that okay? I wanted to let everybody know, chairs, vice chairs, and PCO chairs, you will all be receiving an email tomorrow asking you to give us information about who your designated members of the committee will be this year so that we can get down to work. So look for that email and I will drop my contact information in the chat. Thanks, Beth.
Thank you. Next up, Kat, I think we have a slide or perhaps part of your report that will also require another vote because ahead of this meeting, I received a request for a vote on the following 5 issues together. It was moved by Vice Chair Josh Vaughn and seconded by Endorsement Chair Kat Pipkin. And Kat, would you like to review each of the recommended things? And I just want to make sure, yes, indeed, Zach Pratt is there. Great, thank you.
Yes, going in order of what you're seeing on your screen. Again, this is in the report as well as links to the ballot measure in King County elections. So first item on your screen is the Burien Minimum Wage Initiative. That's Burien Initiative 1. It's been endorsed by one of the 2 LDs. The other LD is also in agreement on this. We have King Conservation District Board of Supervisors District 2, Zachary Pratt, and Zach is here on the call. So if we have a little bit of time, I'd love to introduce Zach to everybody. The balloting for that is different than your normal balloting. You do that online. It's fabulous. It is tabulated by King County Elections, but it is a separate online process. And if you've ever voted in a King Conservation District election, it's different this time to make sure that the King Conservation District representatives are more representative of the district of the county as a whole. They've gone to districting. So this is the first district level district supervisor election. Next, we have the Issaquah School District Proposition 1, which is a general obligation bonds. This is a replacement bond, a replacement levy. There are two primary affected LDs. One has had a business meeting and one has not. The one who had a business meeting did in fact endorse this. The other was very enthusiastic about it. And the second LD is the 41st. Seattle Proposition 1A, the social housing proposition, that has been endorsed by 5 of the 6 legislative districts in the city of Seattle. We also have both Seattle school levies, which have also been endorsed by several LDs. Last item is the proposed Shoreline Regional Fire Authority, which merges 2 fire districts together into a regional fire authority, thus serving all of the towns up in the northern part of the county better. And that is the packet of endorsements we would love to see everybody pass tonight.
I see one hand raised, and as it might be for clarity there, I would like to go ahead and call on Chris Porter.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Kat, in the King Conservation District elections, only the elected seats have been, what do you call it?
Oh, districted. You're
District.
right.
Thank you. That's what district. There are still 2 remaining appointed seats, and of course, the goal is to try to some year get those appointed seats, the elected seats. But it's only 3 of the 5, and I just don't want people to think that there should be 5 when there's really only the 3 elected seats that are districted.
Thank you so much for that clarification, Chris. Former King Conservation District Supervisor Chris Porter, everybody.
I see a question from our own Judy Gibbs. Hi, Judy.
Sorry, I had to unmute. On this social housing, I thought I was all in favor of it, but somebody said that Alice Walt joined some other people in writing something opposing both 1A and 1B. Does anybody know anything about that? Does anybody know what the argument might be against 1A?
That is new to me, Judy. I'm delighted that you brought it up. But I see it is in the voter guide. One of our guests is sharing. So it could be that somebody read the voter guide and brought that comment forward to you in a social setting. What I would like to offer is that 4 of the, am I reading that right?
5 of 6.
5 of 6 legislative districts researched all positions, pro, con, and no action, and have decided to endorse Seattle Prop 1A. And that was enough for the endorsement committee to bring it forward. Alice is actually a member of the 36th legislative district.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And she's very knowledgeable. She's been a strong homeless advocate. She's worked with the ministry, the ministers who've been involved with that. But she's a very strong Democrat, very, very liberal. She was a Bernie supporter in 2016. I guess what I'm wondering, would it be possible to vote on everything except Prop 1A tonight, pass the other stuff, and see if we can find out from Alice what the objections to 1A are?
I'm going to interrupt as chair of the 36th. The 36 has endorsed the position of 1A.
Oh, I did not know that.
To make clear that as our elected representative, given that our body has moved to endorse 1A, we have to vote to support the endorsement of 1A. That decision, if we wanted to interrupt it, had to happen at the LD level. Thank you.
Okay, I did not know that. Somehow I missed that, Tyler. Sorry.
That's okay, Judy. Thank you, and Tyler, thank you so much for stepping in. It makes it feel so much more like an organic meeting, as if we were all together, and I really appreciate that. I also wanted to point out that we are a full spectrum of Democrats, and that should be reflected in our votes on all of these measures as a group. We could choose to hold something out and either not vote or vote at a later date. But in this situation, this is our last opportunity to either support or choose to not support one of these things because ballots are in hand. So if we were to not act tonight, then we would just not be acting, period.
Okay,
So,
I concur with Tyler that if the 36 passed it, then I have to support it. I was not aware of that.
thank you. Thanks, Judy. I appreciate your understanding. That's wonderful. Thank you. Jackie, I see you have a hand raised, followed by Carolyn.
Yes, I was responding to Kit earlier about endorsement of the beer and minimum wage, and I confess I hadn't had a chance to see it before this meeting because again Google didn't like me, so I didn't realize that it does not have us as endorsing the beer and minimum wage. LD 33 has indeed endorsed it.
Beautiful. That adds even more credence to our recommendation tonight. So both LDs with residents in Burien that would be affected by this are both supporting it. Thank you, Jackie. I really appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Hi, Carolyn in the 11th.
Hi, I was wondering if we're voting on all of these together or if we were voting on them separately.
Right now, we're going to vote on all of them together unless somebody wants to take something out to not support or further debate. But it seems that we're having a really awesome conversation, and that might be helping us to resolve and not need to go to multiple ballots. So it'll be all together at this stage of the game.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Tara.
Hi, I just wanted to go back to the discussion about LD endorsements and say that certainly as representatives of the LD, we ought to follow their lead in endorsements, but it is not a rule that you absolutely must, at least not at King County. I don't know if any individual LD has that rule. So just to be clear, you ought to, because that's what representative is. But if something is really against your beliefs, it is not a rule that you must follow your LD's lead.
That is true. King County Dems does not have a rule like that. I appreciate your weighing in. Thank you. Thank you, Tara. And I noticed earlier, Louise had a hand up, but it's down. So I'm wondering if we already answered that question. If not, please speak up. Hi.
Hi again. I just was having a side conversation with my fellow alternate from the 37th, and we're realizing that I should actually be the alternate who is voting, since Tahiet is the alternate for Jamie, who is here.
Oh, that is great. Thank you very much. Our tally committee will give you a star and remove the star from your alternate compatriot. And thank you, both of you, for ironing that out. We are, as I said earlier, we're getting our sea legs.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, knowing that we have a motion and a second, as we always do from recommendations from the endorsement committee, I'd like to ask everybody in favor of supporting everything that is listed on the endorsement committee report to please go to their react button and select the green ball with the white check. If you'd like to not support all of these or all of these together, just pause and we'll ask in a moment if we don't reach this was recommended by endorsement, so it just requires a simple majority. No,
we didn't vote on it. It's a recommendation. Yeah, it's not a formal voted recommendation. We're encouraging, and I moved it.
Wonderful. Yes, you and Josh. Thank you. I apologize. Thank you. And thank you, Alex, who our parliamentarian is also frantically saying, no, Beth, no. This does require two-thirds vote. I do just want to say that this is one of the most gratifying meetings because it does feel very organic, like we're kind of together and having great conversations. I also really appreciate the speakers who are willing to come this week. I learned a lot, and I feel really great about supporting our Shasti, our candidate for DNC vice chair, and now in my knowledge of how to support my neighbors and community members after listening to Mr. Tyler Crone and Council Member Jorge Barone. Tally committee, how are we doing?
We are at 41 votes in favor, which does meet the 2/3 threshold.
Super. Thank you very much. Everybody can lower their check marks. Thank you. And Kat, congratulations. Well done by your whole committee. Thank you. Thank you. I'd also like to give another little nod to Kat Pipkin and the endorsement committee for meeting with all three candidates nominated by County Executive Dow Constantine to fill the seat vacated by Dave Up the Grove when he went to become lands commissioner. So we were able to meet with each of them, and I was able to speak on our behalf today at the council meeting to let them know that we are active and involved and in support of, in this case, all three candidates. They were amazing. And in case you didn't hear early on, Tukwola's mayor, Deshaun Quinn, will be the new council member to serve this next year.
I don't think he's the mayor. I think he was the deputy mayor.
Deputy mayor. Oh, super. Thank you for the good correction. Thank you. Wonderful. Okay, now that we had that little celebration, I want to give a quick shout out to everybody in this room, new or otherwise, that the WADMs are offering a series of training sessions that they're calling Democrat University. And I'd love you to check out the link that we're going to put in the chat. It will look something like this. Yep, I'm old school and I printed it. But you get to go and look at it on your own. There are 9 sessions over the course of a month to learn about all kinds of things, like what's the state committee ecosystem? What does your local party organization need to know about compliance? That is something I do not want to have to know, but chairs and treasurers definitely need to know that. How do you recruit so that you can get some diverse voices in your room? Lots and lots of stuff, right down to how to run a political event. So I encourage you to go to that link, check it out, and have a ton of people, members, not just chairs, not just the KCDCC reps, anybody who's interested in learning about this stuff from WADMs is welcome in all of those. They will also be recorded for re-reviewing as time goes on. So don't worry about missing a session. Are you considering sharing a little love with a special somebody on February 14th? I would like to make a recommendation. My first recommendation is let's not support the Trump economy. We do not need to build economic growth. Consider perhaps an act of service or of appreciation to your special somebody. If, like me, you are a gift giver by nature, consider supporting a Native-owned, an LGBTQIA-owned, a Black-owned business, or any other underrepresented part of our economy to support their strength and show them love at the same time you're showing your special people a little bit of love. So there's my plug for how to have a happy Valentine's Day. We're going to have monthly social get-together, meet with your chair at the very least times, and I had first proposed Sunday, February 9th in the afternoon at Third Place Books in Ravenna, but I have since learned that that is a very unfriendly suggestion since it's Super Bowl Sunday. So put a pin in it. We're going to be meeting with me at Third Place Books in Ravenna, and I'm going to come back to you with a new date. It might even be just that day, but earlier, but I'm going to search a little harder for a new day that is more Super Bowl friendly, because if you are planning on an afternoon on the sofa, even if it's with Netflix and perhaps a bowl of popcorn, you don't have to miss that day to come and chat with me. thank you to everybody who responded with some feedback about how our reorg went. Thank you especially to Chris Porter, who responded today with some extra feedback. We take it all very seriously and are already building our process for what we'll be doing at the end of these 2 years. I'd like right now to spend a couple minutes on new business, because that is the old business that we knew we were going to be talking about. And first up for new business is school power teams. And I wonder if Melissa Taylor would like to share some stuff with us.
I would. Thank you so much. So if you were in our reorg, you heard a little bit of a preview about this. But if you weren't in our reorg or don't remember or just want the update, I'm dropping a link in the chat and I am going to try to share my screen. Sometimes Zoom likes me, sometimes it does not. All right, can you see a volunteer info sheet, Beth? Great. So this is a quick one pager. I am really excited that we have already had 80 people sign up. That sounds like a lot until you know that there's 200 school districts that care for 300,000 of our children. And I like to remind people that even if you don't have children, these are the children who will enter our workforces and build our communities with us. So we all should care about the education of these children. Because the right wing has been organizing around school board elections, and we've seen an increasing amount of it, we really feel like it's an important time to focus on our school boards and make sure that we have great candidates in every seat and where we support them. Frequently, campaigning is a hurdle for when I'm trying to recruit people for school board. And so this is a very aspirational project. It requires a lot of people power. So that 80 volunteers needs to probably be something more like 120 or more volunteers. But right now we have volunteers in 17 of our 20 school districts. The ones we're missing are Skykomish, Fife, and Vashon. So if you know people in any of those 3 school districts, they're relatively small school districts, but their kids need us too. The goal is to raise money, recruit candidates, and help run campaigns for these school board members. We have an organizing committee, which is doing work at the county-wide level to build materials around this. And then we have a team per district. So if you want to help at the county level, that would be lovely. Fill out this form. If you want to help at a school district level, we'll ask you to fill out, actually still fill out this form. Yeah, we're still figuring out some of our systems. And if you want to contribute funds, here I am as the vice chair for fundraising. There's a link for doing that. So please make sure that your LDs are aware of this opportunity. I'm hoping that if you announce this in your 17 LDs, that I can make it to our 120 to 160 volunteers that I think we really need in order to make this successful. So please, please, please. And Nancy, I see your note that yes, we are keeping track of appointments also to know how many seats we need to fill. So thank you, everybody. And Beth, I will turn it back to you.
Awesome. Thank you. It's a great piece of new business. The other thing I'd like to remind everybody of is moving forward, we'll have those opening minutes where we're all in the first 15 minutes before and maybe eking a little bit into the meeting, welcoming our candidates and elected officials to have 2 minutes each with us. And since we did not yet have him as our endorsed candidate at the time, we didn't have that opportunity, but I'd like to right now welcome Zach Pratt to say just a couple words to us.
Well, I will try to keep things as relatively quick as I can. There's been a lot of information that's come out through this meeting. First off, thank you, Beth, for having me. And thank you, Kat, for setting me up to actually speak with everybody this evening. It's very strange being a small guy from Ravensdale, Washington, and Covington who has emerged out of the blackberry brambles out there to run for a position like this. It's not something that I ever thought that I would be doing. However, the opportunity to represent the people from Burien, White Center, Tukwila, Newcastle, Renton, south to the border of Pierce County is a pretty big thing, I guess, for somebody like me. It's going through this whole process. It's been very interesting because I've gotten to realize how many friends I've made over the years. My background is in geology and communications. I'm very passionate about sharing our wonderful geologic story here. I biased opinion, but I think we have the best in the area. But going through this process, I've talked to people from my friends with the Lincoln Parks Foundation up in Burien, all the way to my friends down here in the valley with the White River Museum, to my friend at the head of the Puyallup Fish and Wildlife Department, Jeffrey Thomas, and his associations with the Winds of Change Alliance, which focuses on ecocultural stewardship in regards to indigenous lands, to I was just appointed to the Enumclaw Plateau Society's board, to my friends up at the Newcastle Historical Society. It is a beautiful thing to realize how many wonderful relationships I've developed over the years, doing the kind of things that I just have fun doing, just being a normal guy with a background in all of this stuff. But with that, I think that that's kind of one of the things that sets me up for success in this position, is all of those relationships that I've built over the years. I will admit, I don't know everything when it comes to conservation. It's weird because I'm actually fall more into like the preservationist side of thing. It's the whole John Muir versus Gifford Pinchot argument. But if I'm elected to the position, that's not what I'm about. I'm about representing the people and the relations that I've built over the years. But really, it boils down to the folks that I've talked to up in, say, the Burien and SeaTac area, where their primary concerns are things of like community food access, local farming, and so on and so forth. Meanwhile, my friends out in Enumclaw, I've got a good friend, his name's Bernie McKinney, who's really passionate about farming and getting the lands restored with native plants. And the Green River Gorge out there has over 300 native plants that are only found in that little tiny specific area, to friends that are over in Renton that are concerned about CARAs, critical aquifer recharge areas. I like clean water. I don't know about you. So the beautiful thing is I get to bring all these relationships to this position to help facilitate what the conservation district can do moving forward. The financials are great with there. I've reviewed some of the minutes. They're in a really good position. But now the time is to figure out what the conservation district can do to spread the mission overall. So ultimately, like I said, I'm just a little blackberry bush stomper from southeast King County, but you know what? I had to come out at some point in time and take off my muddy pants and talk to you guys. So I appreciate everybody's time and allowing me to speak after all of this time.
Zach, thank you so much. We really appreciate you heeding the call to represent a rural part of the county that does not currently have representation. So everybody who's in District 2, please go online to King Conservation District and confirm that you are able to vote in this race and vote for our friend Zach.
Thanks.
I'm just going to say I really appreciate your t-shirt, Cumberland, greatest population of hose drinkers.
Well, you know what's funny about that, Beth, is so my friend, some of you guys may know Debbie Page. She's on the Black Diamond City Council. She actually gave me a water bottle that says hose water.
Oh my gosh.
Now that's a different story. That's regarding an aggregate mine along the Green River Gorge that we're fighting, but we're very passionate about being feral hose drinkers out there.
Next meeting, once you're duly elected, we will welcome you back at the beginning, and we'd like to hear that story. I love it.
Absolutely.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I have one more piece of new business, but I want to do a quick double check of my committee chairs and other officers to make sure I'm not speaking over somebody. Was there other committee chair or officer new business before I move forward? Thank you, Andrew. Yes.
Everyone, I do apologize that I'm not on camera for certain reasons beyond my control. First of all, I want to say that we had our first minor or major outreach event, which was last week, Monday, at the MLK March here in Seattle. It was very successful, and thank you to every KCDCC members and people within the party that came out to support us. We were happy to run into some of our elected officials there also, like King County Council Member Gamay, King County Council Member Jorge Barron and Seattle City Council Member Alexis Mercedes Rennick. And speaking about outreach, we are planning to have a very impactful Pride event this year, and most especially with the current administration attack on the LGBTQ plus community. This is the time that we should all come together, unite, and use our Pride event as a statement. We are working on having 2 civic engagement sessions, primary election session and general election session, where we would host events in communities outside of Seattle to get some of our endorsed candidates to talk, to ensure people are registered to vote and teach people about voting. And one of the goals is also to expand on language access to balloting and voting, and ensure that we're able to recruit people that represent every aspect of the demographics here in King County. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Andrew, thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to partnering with you on that kind of outreach. And I know that we have folks from all over the county who are interested in becoming involved in that as well. Thank you very much. The next thing I'd like to do is read to you a letter that I'll be releasing as chair of King County Democrats tomorrow. It was linked in the last email to you, but I think it's important enough that I actually read the words aloud. This does circle back a little bit to my Pete Buttigieg impactful statement, where we are not sitting silent in shock and awe of bad behavior and terrible decisions. We are acting tactically and standing together against incursions into our civil liberties and our protection of ourselves. So my letter is in reaction to a very troubling report, the second report of its type in the Seattle Times. I'll read it to you right now. We are deeply troubled by the recent reporting on King County Assessor John Arthur Wilson's behavior that bears the hallmarks of intimate partner violence. We must be willing to call out these behaviors regardless of party affiliation. King County voters should have every confidence that not only that their elected officials are following the law, but that those they elect are held to the highest standards of personal accountability. We ask Assessor John Wilson to publicly recognize and acknowledge that his behavior, as described in the Seattle Times, was unacceptable, as evidenced by the court's decision 3 times to reprove a restraining order. We further ask Assessor Wilson for a public apology for his unacceptable behavior as our leader and for his violation of the public trust in doing so. Further, we ask for an investigation to ascertain whether Assessor Wilson used King County resources to secure the metadata used to violate his restraining order to find the undisclosed address of his, at the time, former girlfriend, and whether he used his King County issued phone when tracking her phone. Finally, we ask that the investigation ascertain whether Assessor Wilson used his authority as the King County assessor to influence the firing of the ex-boyfriend named in the restraining order. We believe that Assessor Wilson owes his constituents assurance of his clear understanding of the seriousness of his actions here, and a confidence in him that he did not use public resources to carry out intimate partner intimidation. Lastly, we call upon other leaders to stand up and to call out behavior as described in the Seattle Times story when they see it. Everyone is harmed when we allow behavior like this to go unchecked. Signed, myself, Chair Beth Baisley, King County Democrats. Thank you for the screen share. I just wanted to be really transparent in how important this is, that we stand up and we show up every time. It's not just Trump. We can't be quiet about things that are deeply troubling like this. And there was a time when we endorsed John Arthur Wilson for this role, which in a way holds us accountable as well. So thank you for listening to my voice for so long tonight. That's the end of our new business, but it does give me the opportunity to open the chat to everybody and to ask for good of the order. I know that Charlotte has some thoughts. I see many hands coming up. It makes me so happy. Charlotte, I'd like to hand the mic to you for good of the order. Kick us off.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize for my voice. I'm getting off of a nasty, nasty cold. I'm very sorry. Today, I just wanted to share some really, really stellar good news out of Iowa this evening. There was a special election in Iowa's 35th Senate District this evening. And in 2022, the senator who was elected, who is now their lieutenant governor, is a Republican. She won 61% of the vote, won by a margin of 5,000 votes, 22% vote margin. Tonight, the Iowa Democrats flipped that seat. The seat was won by Democrat Mike Zimmer by a margin of 339 votes. This is a Trump, I believe, Trump 21 district. And for those of you who know those numbers, that is a tall order to face, and that's just amazingly good news from a Midwest state, I think a former swing state, and I think we all could use a little bit of that good news. So congratulations on at least my behalf to Senator-elect Mike Zimmer, and let's move the blue wave towards us, shall we?
Onward, exactly. Thank you. And points out every single vote matters.
Exactly. Every single
Everybody
vote matters. 335 votes determined.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Super.
Determined.
Charlotte,
Yeah.
thank you.
Every vote counts. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Chris Porter, thank you for waiting.
Yes. Thank you, Beth. I wanted to point out just two things real quick. One, which is we spoke briefly about endorsements and how, for instance, the last time I ran for King Conservation District, I ran during the reorganization period, and I was astounded, flabbergasted, and amazed, and ultimately disappointed that I couldn't get endorsements from LDs and even at the time King County Democrats because we were so busy mired down by the rule of, well, we're going through reorg, so we can't really do this and we can't do that. And when we talk about what we need to do as Democrats to win offices, we can't be mired down by this rule of we can't do it because we're going through a reorg. Because I can assure you, on the other side of that aisle, they are not worried about that. That has never hampered them from making the endorsement, pushing their candidates, endorsing their candidates, and making sure their candidates win that office. So I'm asking, begging that LDs go back and look at their bylaws and consider the standing endorsement committee that will continue to make those endorsements through the reorg period so that we send the message that we're serious about endorsements, we're serious about candidates, we're serious about winning, and we don't make candidates wait because procedure dictates and bylaws dictate that we have to wait until all is set and a new endorsement committee ensues. And the other thing I wanted to say is I appreciate your letter very much, Beth, because a couple of years ago, Commissioner Mike Cridler was just turning his office upside down and inside out, as had been reported by KUOW. I wrote a letter to the editor, and he actually published it, calling out his behavior, calling out his antics, calling out his outrageous statements that he made. And probably the most sad part is there weren't other Democrats elected PCOs, whatever, that were really calling him out on that behavior, like you're calling out Wilson on his behavior. And in that case, too, asking him to step down because it just reached a point where I felt it was a long time for him to go. So on one hand, we also have to be, like you said, regardless of party affiliation, willing to stand up and step forward and say, hey, enough is enough, and call folks out for the odd behavior or hurting behavior that doesn't help us win that office. Thank you.
Indeed. Indeed. Thank you for that nod of approval. And thank you also to the 7 LDs who made endorsements during this period of transition to allow us to bring forward things that we brought forward tonight. Thank you. And thank you, Chris, for pointing out how critical endorsements are. Hunter Brown, thank you for holding your hand.
Yeah, thank you, Beth. Great first meeting. Really appreciate you. I just wanted to extend congratulations to Zed. He was recently, I apologize if I mispronounce your name, but recently elected as the chair of the Muslim caucus. They had their first meeting. It looks like he's got his hand up too, so I'm sorry if I stole your glory there, but congratulations, and so excited that that's off to a great start and had really high attendance. So.
Awesome. Thank you. And thanks for bringing that forward again. That is definitely something to celebrate. I appreciate it. Alex, thanks for joining us.
Hello. Yeah, so I guess I wanted to just let everyone know that right now the 30th and 33rd LD are trying to work on increasing coordination between all the LDs. So hopefully sometime within the next few months, you'll see someone from either the 33rd or the 30th come to your meetings and hopefully keep in touch with y'all because we need to coordinate, especially right now. Yeah.
Definitely. Standing together and coordinating for greater impact. I love it, Alex. Thank you very much for doing that. Thank you. Hi, guest Josh.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. Just want to do a quick introduction. My name is Josh Sanders. I am the new political director for Congressman Adam Smith. So for anybody who would like to grab coffee, get to know me, I'd love to get to know all of you. I'm making the trips around all the LDs in the 9th Congressional District. I will put my contact information in the chat, but just want to do a quick intro and looking forward to being involved with the King County Dems.
Thanks for the intro. Count me in for one of those cups of coffee, Josh. Thanks. I see Zaid. How did I do?
You both did well. It basically anything that starts with a Z ends with a D works with me. Yeah, I've gone by many names throughout my career. Thank you so much, Hunter, as well, for the congratulations. Yes, I recently got nominated for to lead the Muslim caucus, which has just recently been formed. Really exciting times for us. Super happy about that. I'm also, prior to that, on Wednesday, I became representative for KCDCC as a 41st part of 41st LD PCO. So Kat is kind of my partner in crime here. So she's kind of showing me the ropes as well. The one kind of big thing that I wanted to request, especially as a new chair for the Muslim caucus, Jorge earlier pointed out that today was the 8th anniversary of the Muslim ban. I actually had no idea. That was like PTSD for me. I tried to forget that bit. But that being said, right now, both today and tomorrow, there are bills being debated on in both the House and Senate for at the Washington state level on two things. One is making Eid a public holiday at the state level, which is the Muslim holiday. It happens twice a year. So that's one thing. And the second thing is a MENA, Middle Eastern and North Africa commission that they're voting on tomorrow. So both of these are, obviously mean a lot to us. So I'm going to put some links. I'm going to put a link in the chat. If you could just vote pro on both of them, we'd be very grateful. The first one obviously applies the Muslims and their holiday. The MENA one also applies to Middle Eastern, North Africans, so Arabs, Israelis, and North Africans. Everyone in the region would have their own committee. So really, really important for all of us. The one thing I'll point out is today, the votes that happened, there were 708 pro and 718 cons. I don't know where the cons came from because, everybody wants another holiday. So if we just get just a couple more for tomorrow, it would mean the world. So yes, just wanted to point that out. Thank you so much.
Wonderful reminders, and I love a call to action. Thank you for that. That was fantastic. Everybody can click on those links right now. Tara Gallagher, thanks for waiting. I appreciate it.
Sure. I just wanted to ask, and there may already be a plan. There's a lot of good links in the chat. Can somebody save that and mail that out? Because it's really hard to copy things out of there and don't want to open a million tabs. So if that could get out soon, that would be great.
Sure do. It is. I can't even manage it, and I'm doing nothing but staring at it. So thank you for that good reminder. We'll make certain we get all those links out. Finally, Miss Melissa Taylor, thank you for waiting.
Yeah, I wanted to share another link that we can include in that list in the chat, which is Sherilyn Eiffel has a Substack newsletter that has just been phenomenal. So her post the day after the election was one of the things that kept me going. She had a couple of really great posts right after the election, and then now as he's taking office, it is, I put in here, it's both inspiration and solace. So it's that, hey, it's okay to take a breath. You don't have to be caught up in the circus, similar to what Pete Buttigieg says, but also like, we've got work to do. And what is the work that is most impactful right now? Not getting distracted with everything, but here are the things that you can go do. I've really been enjoying reading her and wanted to share that with folks.
I love it. I love a new source for good information and inspiration. I'll have one last call for any good of the order. Anything from anybody else? I will applaud you all for hanging in there for more than 2 hours with us tonight. Thank you so very much. I'm really looking forward to everything we're going to achieve together. And stand by for a little third place books with me. Maybe not on Super Bowl Sunday, however. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight, and continue the good work and continue to be a leading force in your communities. Onward, together we go. With that, we adjourn. Thank you. 9 o'clock straight up. Thank you.